Hi, it's Kara. I'm here with Jessica Hecht. We just had a spectacular conversation.
Yeah, please. She's wonderful to talk to. If you have any problems or really just want to share your most intimate details, totally give her a call. What's your number?
It's 1-800-THERAPY now. That'd be good, actually. I should take that out.
You should.
I don't feel like we had
Please,
a
trust
therapy
me.
session, though.
No, just a nice, actually kind of girl-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Really Famous. I'm Kara Mayer Robinson, and I interview famous people. But I don't just interview them like your typical interview. I'm not really interested in those same old questions. Instead, I like to know who they really are and what they really think.
Today, I'm talking to Jessica Hecht. You know her from Friends. She played Ross's ex-wife's new wife, Susan. Breaking Bad, she played Gretchen, Walter White's ex, Red Oaks, and many other TV shows. She's also a phenomenal theater actor and has been nominated for a Tony Award for Best Actress in A View from the Bridge. She was recently in the 24-Hour Musicals, a one-night show performed once a year in New York. Check it out at 24hourplays.com. Jessica is married to Adam Bernstein, an incredible director behind, seriously, some of the best shows on TV, like Breaking Bad and Fargo. Right now, she's in a fun and very original series on Netflix. It's called Special. It's about a 20-something with cerebral palsy who's trying to branch out in his life. It was created by Ryan O'Connell, who plays the main character. Jessica plays his mom. She adores him and takes fabulous care of him, but maybe smothers him just a bit. Fun extra fact, it also stars Patrick Fabian, who you know from Better Call Saul and from Really Famous, of course. Jessica popped over to the Reunion Plaza, New York, Times Square recently, and we had a great talk. At the end, we did a couple of videos. For sure, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Really Famous. Not only will you see this extra Q&A with Jessica, you'll also find dozens of little videos that I filmed with my really famous, really fabulous guests. Now, here's the podcast with Jessica. So I have greetings for you.
From who?
Patrick Fabian.
Oh my gosh. Oh, he's so wonderful. Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. I totally just fell for him because he's extremely clear as a human being. He's like he's just very present. And I think you encounter so many people who kind of, not that they waffle, but who have a lot of personas that they present, but he presents like just a very present, straightforward. I'm certain he's enormously complicated, but there's something very clear about him. I don't understand
I think
how
you're
he's arrived
right.
at that. But he did.
After I met him, I remember one of the things I mentioned on social media when I was promoting his episode was like, the world needs more Patrick Fabians.
Oh, yeah.
He's such a good guy.
He's a great guy, and he was excellent to act with. I loved acting with him. Also because, I was playing a character that was somewhat neurotic or somewhat searching, and he was just like, you could throw anything at him, and he would have just this extremely sort of, I was going to say enlightened, but this insight as a character that helped me to kind of fill all my, check all the neurotic boxes. Like I would try different ways of getting in there with him, and he just, there was something very present about him acting-wise.
Yeah, for sure. So first, let me not forget that he said to say hi to you, to send his love. He said, Jessica is the best.
Oh, that's very sweet.
I think all caps, if I remember correctly.
He's very sweet.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about Special, because I finished it last night. I started 2 nights ago.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I remember that he had been promoting it.
Yeah, oh, that's so
So I kind of like had it in the back of my mind, and then when I found out that you were going to be on the show, I was like, oh, let me definitely check this out.
Oh, thank you for watching.
So I love it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think as a therapist, probably,
yes,
you can as a one-time therapist, you can probably identify with this search for mental health that my character is on in some, subliminal way. But I loved doing it. I loved Ryan's writing.
He's
amazing.
So perfect.
He's perfect, and his own personality shines through in his characterization. He's so of this time, just the way he talks and all of that. But he's also like an incredibly cool self-made man, and I loved that.
So I love all the characters.
He
is so great, like so original. I love hearing his voice. I love his smile.
Yeah, and the way he talks.
Yeah, the way he talks is amazing. I also love his friend Kim.
Yeah.
She's just like you want her in your life.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if you met her, you'd be all over her.
Yes,
she's
exactly.
a very delicious human being.
And then your relationship with Neighbor Man is very interesting, and I could totally see your relationship with your son. Like, it's so authentic.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I think that I have kids, and I understand being boundaryless at times and trying to figure that out, trying to be like their friend, and then feeling like that's not the way to go. So, I related to it on a lot of levels, but all my thoughts kind of went by the wayside when I met Ryan, because he's so unique. And so, you sort of think, like, how do you create characters? But when you meet someone like Ryan, I sort of felt like something inside of me will understand how to mother him, or how this mother operates. And it was true. They say, like, well, it's very interesting. They say about certain parts, well, you won't know how to play it until you meet the person playing your son. Or when you're doing Three Sisters, for instance, this great Chekhov play, you won't know how to play that sister until you meet your other sisters.
That makes sense.
Because it's all about,
how you work off each other, the relationships.
You can't create it in a vacuum. And I totally think that happened with that TV series, which is very rare on television. It's that the writing is so superb that you could almost look at it like, it's almost written like a set of short stories. If you think of the memoir and then how he created this show.
Yeah. So and they're like 15 minutes each, which makes it's delicious. I love that.
Yeah, but Patrick is excellent just to do all those scenes with, because he's a grown up too. There was a couple of people who had just very funny things to say about the fact, just also the fact that middle-aged people are having sex, which is sort of like on TV.
That doesn't not happen.
Well, I just found that I did several interviews where they were like, "Wow, this is amazing! You got to do that scene," and I thought, "How funny!" Is there a cutoff age?
No, I didn't feel like
my
that
friend
was.
Maura Tierney does amazing sex scenes as a total adult. So yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, she's amazing. So anyway,
so let's talk about your kids. So you have kids. I think they're the same ages as my older two. And I did a little bit of reassurance yesterday. Do you have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I saw the years. I was like, oh, those are my years. Yeah. So one is in college already?
One is in college and one's heading to college. And I'm they're going to be amazing adults. They're just super interesting people. Not that they're not amazing teenagers, but they're teenagers, but they will certainly be the person you want to talk to at the party.
You can see that.
I totally can see that already. And, you're sort of driving in the car with them and they say something very, insightful and it sort of shames you because you're still seeking some dynamic with them that's like mother and child.
Right.
And you're like, God, they're just such interesting people.
Yeah.
So I have to give up this idea.
Did you like it when they were little? Like, did you get into the little young child thing?
Yeah, I love being a mom. I love small children. My kids often tease me that I will be at some point picked up by, like the Vice Squad for staring at small children.
Oh, really? You do?
I love young children. And I always say to people that are having kids, even that I know just a small amount, if you need a babysitter, I would be so happy. And I really mean that. If anybody's listening to this and they have small kids,
you better watch out.
I am so happy to babysit. I just love children. But my kids were amazing, are amazing people. They weren't the easiest kids. They weren't, people say, you talk to people and you're like, God, that was an exhausting day.
Yeah.
Like, really, why? Well, my kids just had a few meltdowns. Oh, that's so hard. Oh, we have it.
Well, what are you talking about? What were these like?
Well, my kids, they're just really self-possessed. So in a great way, they're not people pleasers. I think as a kid, I've just sort of wanted, like, hence going into acting, I wanted to be sort of like the good kid. There's this book about going to college called Excellent Sheep. And I think I was maybe a good sheep for a long time. My kids are not sheep. And I think that's a remarkable quality, probably like their dad. They're not sheep, but it doesn't make it that easy.
Right. No, I think that's true, right?
They're definitely not excellent sheep, but they will be amazing grown-ups.
Right. So you have to be able to see that in the distance to make it through those times, so they're not just like staying in line.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't want them to be sheep. You want them to be, you don't want them to be wolves, but you want them to be their own individual with their own ideas. Yeah. I think also part of it is a generational thing to do. Maybe not, but I do feel like it was more of the thing to do the right thing, to be a sheep.
In the 70s?
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah. Or the way I don't parent with enough sort of discipline, but I don't think parenting is about discipline. It's about sort of guiding somebody towards the right choices, and trying not to be too punitive when they don't make them.
Right. So you were not like that good at being the disciplinarian, I guess.
It comes down to like at the end when things have really gone to pot. Yes. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yes.
It takes a long time, and then I really get down.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't like. I guess I'm conflict averse, like a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm conflict averse, but I think that is very common.
Yeah, I grew up in a really chaotic household.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Now you had therapists as parents, didn't you?
My dad's a psychiatrist. My mom's an aunt was a psychotherapist. Yeah.
Oh, so
did you also?
No, I'm the first of my. Well, my dad was a school guidance counselor for a long time, and then he became like a school social worker.
Lovely.
So I guess there's that similarity, but no, I come from a family of teachers.
Oh yeah, I would have liked to have been a teacher.
So what was your chaotic childhood like? What was it like?
Just telling your feelings loudly, a lot.
So yelling?
A lot of yelling, a lot of expressing. I have great parents. I mean, I think now my biological dad is no longer alive, but my stepfather, who's an amazing, who was my parent, and my mom are just great. Yeah. They my dad too. They were great people, but they were volatile people. Yeah, therapists are often have complicated boundaries about telling details of your. Like, I thought a lot of people would tell details of their personal lives, real details, to their parents, but I don't think that's the case.
No. Oh, so you used to reveal everything to them?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah, and then they look at you and they kind of see what's going on. I think perhaps more accurately than others who don't have a degree in.
Right. So you did feel analyzed.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like big time.
Yeah.
Like under a microscope?
Under a microscope, yeah, of course, yeah. But now as an adult, I see that, you see it all when you have your own kids, that they're just trying to help you to avoid, death. Really,
right.
They're trying to help you to avoid death or darkness.
Right, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But it sounds like if your parents were both doing that, they probably were very interested in.
Yeah.
But so who was yelling then? Your parents were yelling?
They just had I have siblings too. It's just a very loud household, very emotional household. Yeah, I have a conjoined family. So my mother married my stepfather, who had custody of his 2 kids. So it was a little sort of Brady bunch with a lot of teenagers kind of trying to figure it out together.
That is interesting.
All very emotional. Yeah, and really open about yelling and I definitely felt that was the nature of being, in a family. But my husband grew up with no yelling, so yeah.
Now your husband is a director.
He's a superb director, yeah.
Okay, and he has directed a lot lot of seriously my favorite shows.
Yeah, right. Fargo, Breaking
Fargo,
Bad.
and it was the first season of Fargo he was on, right? He did.
Yeah.
Best season.
Yeah, he's excellent. He just did a beautiful episode of City on the Hill, which I just watched last night, and I think he's a great vision for what TV shows should look like.
So City on a Hill is that Kevin Bacon show.
Exactly.
It just started on Showtime. I think it started already.
Yeah. I think so.
And so which episode did he direct?
I'm not
Was
sure
it one
which
of the
one,
first?
but it's a very dramatic one toward the penultimate episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he directed some Breaking Bad.
Many Breaking Bad.
Many.
And
including the ones that you were in.
Just the first one I did with Brian. So I did like the first episodes of a few shows of that show and also of Friends, like the first and then the end, and then peppered in there a bunch of in-betweens. But my husband and I have worked together very rarely because that's not part of our dynamic. But we did that first episode.
Wait, so okay, you said Friends too. So you went in the beginning of. So you played Susan, which was Ross's wife's new wife.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was her name? I'm forgetting.
Carell.
Carell, right? Because I watched them all when they aired, of course.
Yeah,
so you were. Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's the 25th anniversary
of Friends.
Yeah.
I need a minute to process that.
It's okay.
Because it's still on all the time because now like Gen Z loves Friends.
Yeah.
So there's a whole new generation of people who are watching it.
Of course.
But you came on at the beginning and then not for a while, and then at the end you were on a lot? I didn't remember that's how it went.
Yeah. I've had a few shows that I sort of was able to see through.
Oh,
which is lovely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to your husband grew up with no yelling. So what was his family life like? A quiet, non-sharing, or sharing but just calm?
Which is not talking about your emotions all the time, your feelings. I've been very primed to discuss feelings as a way of, like my family trafficked in feelings, emotions.
Right.
And my husband's family trafficked in ideas and politics and history.
Oh, so things
art.
External.
Yeah, they're really interesting people. I mean, his mom was a painter and his dad was a physics professor. And so, they had a whole nother way of communicating.
So how did you come together, the two of you, with such different norms?
I'm very malleable. I felt like his life was really intriguing. And so I have found the things that they gravitated to, I've made them part of my own interests. Although it's quite interesting, the idea that if you're raised trafficked in feelings, that it's very hard to get away from that. So we can have a discussion about history or, I'm not that political a person in terms of thinking of it as a sporting event. I can sort of, when you were raised in a very emotional environment, I think a lot of times your response to intellectual things is to seek out what's sort of emotional in this story. So if you were to talk about a story about, my husband was telling me about this great book about this Comanche leader, and he's telling me about this story and this incredible story about the Trail of Tears, and I find myself gravitating toward the pathos of the characters whose children are killed, and he can clock the battles and the details of where they traveled and all that. And at some point I realized I've lost that. I'm just thinking about the mom looking for the kid in the big open field, and it's quite interesting how you get wired. And I don't know if that's just nature or if that's the way I grew up.
I think it may be both, but I feel as though I lean in that direction too, just like you. If I'm not interested in this really, these just like plain facts about whatever.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I get lost in the facts, and I actually can't keep track of
Neither
them.
can I. Ask me a date, I won't know it.
Right.
Nothing like
but
that.
But if you're and so the players in the whatever political issue is blowing our minds now. If you're talking about abortion, and you start to think of these poor women, these welfare moms who can't travel, right? You're not thinking about which senators are, you're not thinking of it on a scorecard. You start to think about the people who are affected, and that's just the way my mind works. Of course, I can I can focus enough to remember a few names, but I don't.
But that's really what it's about to me. It's all that's the first place and only place.
Can't have another
exactly.
child, right?
It's about putting yourself in these women's shoes, you know, who
their bodies, who are
in their shoes, right? And to think about all the people behind the issue that so many people are fighting over that don't even. It's not even relevant to them necessarily.
In no way is it relevant to them.
So to
They're
me,
never
that's,
be,
I don't
they can
understand
take a car
that.
and drive to the next state. Yeah.
So you really have to, even if it's not something that you have to relate. I mean, to me, everybody's relatable
well,
too.
That's it. Yeah,
I'm always looking for I guess I'm doing it subconsciously. I don't think I'm like consciously looking for how to relate to every person, but I really do think a lot of my outlook on life is, who is this person? I mean, I was just, walking through the city before and I'm watching all these people go by and I'm like, literally in my head, I thought, so many stories. Every person has a big story.
I know. I just got off the train. It was so upsetting. There was a mom who obviously was having a really hard day, and her daughter had dropped her tablet on. This was not a mom with any resources, and this daughter had dropped a tablet on the subway track. It was underneath the rail, and she was desperately asking somebody to help to grab the tablet. The daughter at first was really hysterical, and then as the mother grew more hysterical and started to cry, the daughter got very sober. And the daughter was holding on to the stroller, trying to just keep it together so the mother didn't get more upset. The mother was sort of pleading with the guy. And I just sort of thought, I went over with another woman to ask if we could help, and there was really nothing to do. So it's like, what are you going to put more pressure on the MTA to go get this tablet off the... And then I thought I could just give the mother money for another tablet, which would be truly absurd.
Yeah, but really nice.
Right.
Really
for that, we have to go to the ATM and get cash. But you're also thinking it would be really nice. It would have been I would have been late to the interview, first of all. and also it was me thinking, you have no resources. And I'm gonna, it was complicated, right? Because then it's me trying to be a savior to this person, and I'm making these assumptions about who she is and what's going on. And she was really strung out, really upset. It was obvious, but anyway, it's just this emotional reaction. And the other woman looked at me and said, there's nothing that we can do. She's speaking to the MTA sort of in this paternal way. And I thought, we could just give her $200 to buy another tablet.
So are you a rescuer or generally somebody who wants to?
Yeah, well, my husband just says I have a problem with that. Yeah, I definitely do have a problem because it's my own. It's a totally narcissistic thing. I feel sick to my stomach that this mother and child are crying, and I'm going to throw some money at it so they stop crying, rather than.
But how is that narcissistic?
Well, it's my own discomfort with people in distress. Okay, it's a complicated thing.
It is,
right? Yeah,
that is really. You're really looking at it from a very therapist.
Well,
deep,
yes.
Not just a therapist, but a deeply analytical therapist.
Well, I run a foundation that brings theater to refugees and in Greece, and my kids at first were so insightful about it because they said, yeah, I understand that you look at that on the TV and you can't bear. This was in 2016 at the start of that crisis, and I was just, when the little boy washed up on shore and all of that. And part of it is this hysteria that you get when you see that image and you can't stop thinking about it, and your own ego is saying this cannot be, this absolutely cannot be. And so how and you're trying to basically stop one obsessive thought from taking over. So can you do
Okay, what about just plain altruism though? Don't you think that exists?
I do think that exists. It's a very big question. It exists, but it exists and the ego motivates it because you do feel better when you perform an altruistic deed. But I don't think anyone would deny that altruism is fueled by ego. It's a really interesting
I don't think
concept.
so either, but I think to take it all the way to narcissism, I don't know.
It's not narcissism, but it is to stave off like really obsessive thoughts about people in distress.
So is that how it is for you? Is that it becomes an obsessive?
Yeah, like I'll think about that mom on the train for a while and how they, that is actually the one burden of living in the city, because you see people in a state, you see children in a state, and it's sickening, right? You create a whole reality that this family's, and it may or may not be the truth, and you create this very upsetting reality that, meanwhile, you at that stage in your life could have been standing there with a hysterical child, and someone else could have created this reality around you. So this mother who was crying about the tablet may easily have been a fairly functional mom who was just having a really bad day.
Right. It's true. And I do think that some people more than others even just put stories, you kind of apply stories.
Exactly.
My husband does that a lot.
I apply a whole story.
He thinks he knows the whole story about somebody just from looking at them.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're making assumptions. Like there are a million things that could be going on that you have no idea about.
Yeah.
You have no idea what this person went through this morning.
Right,
and I'm kind of, it's a little different. Like if he's like getting annoyed at a bad driver or something, like, what a jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no, you can't say he's not necessarily a jerk. Maybe he just got word that his mother just died or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I've had that experience where people are driving me, because you often are driven as an actor to sets or whatever. And I've thought like, oh my God, I actually recently had a driver, and I thought this young woman is driving me and she seems kind of checked out. And they said, it was around the holidays, and I said, hey, so like I couldn't quite read her, and I said, what are you doing for the holidays? And she said, oh, I got married recently to my college boyfriend. I said, you look so young. Are you in college? She said, yeah, and I got married. And I was like, how did your parents feel you're so young? And that she said, well, they just died. And I said, both your parents just died? She said, yeah. And they probably got married. And I'm thinking, here I am assuming that she's checked out, thinking about where she wants to go party tonight.
Yes.
And she has the weight of the world on her shoulders. And and it's always a lesson. You don't know what anybody's. This interview is getting very dark, but it's sobering that we're always sort of looking for. we're kind of looking for an easy answer to people's behaviors, we plug some sort of scenario in that seems right for their age or whatever, the way they look.
There's a reason for it. It's because you've had the history where all this data comes in, right? So into your brain, I guess you've seen a lot of that. Yeah, so then you just think it's the same data, and so like the other, whatever the input is, the output would be. Does that make sense?
It's perfect.
So it makes sense that we do it.
Perfect.
I do feel like I look a lot like I'm so curious about what each person is, but I think that's because I'm a therapist, and that's because of what I do. Like this is normally like, this is what I do. I'm so interested in just your experiences, because I don't think they're the same as anyone else's.
No, I don't think they're the same, but I do think that we can help each other a lot. Sometimes people say things to each other, even though they haven't experienced the same thing. There's this sort of human understanding that I think we offer a lot of help to each other,
right,
if you get into the right,
I think so
frame
too,
of mind for it,
because we're social people, we're social animals.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lighten it, but you said it's getting dark, so I'm going to lighten it because I don't want to forget to ask you. I read that is this true? And now it's reminding me, because you talked about how much you love little kids. Were you George Wendt's nanny? Is that true?
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, that is so funny. I mean, not funny, but
I was a nanny
so
for
unique.
a while. Yeah. I was a nanny in New York, and then I went to LA to do a play, and I did this play for quite a while, and then I felt that I was going to stay there, and I had no work, and a boyfriend of mine was close to George and his beautiful wife, Bernadette Burkett. And so I was their nanny for a few years, and they're an amazing family. They have 5 kids. And
that is so cool. Yeah, so you were nanny for 5 kids at once?
No, just the younger ones, because they have a huge gap between the older 2 and then the younger 3. So for 3 kids at once. Yeah.
So, okay. First question is, was he working on Cheers at the time?
He was. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And then I did a play with Danny DeVito a few years back, and I was like, oh my God, do you remember me? And Danny's nanny nanny, also was an actress. And it was this funny time in LA where these young actors were nannies to famous people.
That is so interesting, because then they would see you on set, so they would all know.
I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "Yeah, I remember you were George's nanny," and they were so cool. You know, I replicated that same dynamic in a nanny of our. We've some nannies that were super successful now.
Really,
this girl Jessica Goldberg, who's a big TV producer. Liz Flahive, huge TV producer.
Oh, Liz Flahive, I know that name. Is that Glow?
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, huge TV producer. This woman, Emily Althouse, who's on Orange is the New Black. She was our nanny. It was just...
How does that work, though? That's not typical. That's not typical for you to have had 3 nannies who are hugely successful.
Yeah. Well, I met them all at the Williamstown Theater Festival. They were apprentices. And
that's why.
Or they were there for some reason, and you kind of snatch them up.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is a great job to be a nanny. I find it was the best job for me. And I always advocate to my students that they should work with children, because it's it also takes you out of your own head. There's something about being with someone that doesn't care at all about the things that you are preoccupied with. That's your status is of no value to them. It's only like your imagination is of value, your heart, your your ability to drive, but not your status.
Right, how much food, snacks you have in your bag.
Any of that, yeah. I loved it, yeah.
So do you still see the kids ever? Like the
George
kids that
Yeah, I do. And their daughter, Hillary, is getting married this year. So they're I do. Funny. I stay in good touch with them.
But I think also a really good person who's so good with your kids is also kind of rare, so that when you find that, it's also a special relationship for everybody.
Yes, it's like family.
Right.
Yeah,
like I had a babysitter for my kids when they were young, but she was in college a lot, so she would kind of come back and she would help me whenever she could. But now we're actually really friendly to this day. Like we'll go out to lunch together.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, and my kids are all way taller than she is now, and it's just so funny. But she's so special to us.
Of course, because you left those kids.
And I think it's nice that she gets to see where they are now, older.
Yeah.
That's
we have
so
the same
funny.
thing.
But George Wendt, that's so random. So you moved out to LA for the play, and then did you stay out there very long?
I stayed for about 4 years, and that boyfriend and I broke up, and then I met my husband, and we got married like a year later. And then we got out of Dodge. We hated it.
You were not LA people?
No. But he proposed in LA, and I had some great experiences with TV at the beginning, and then I didn't care for it, and I needed to leave. So we came back to New York right away. Yeah.
Okay. So there are a few other shows that are popping into my head that I think were early in your career.
Yeah.
Party of Five.
Oh my God, yeah. Shocking. That was a long time ago.
That was one of my favorite shows of all time. I practically named my kids after the characters of that show.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a distant memory. I'm sorry. I'm trying to
That's right.
From the recesses.
I forget what the other ones are, but I did write them down because I was like, let me make sure. What are the other ones? Oh, this isn't as long ago.
What one?
Bored to Death.
Oh,
fun.
I love that. Yeah, and Ted was wonderful. Yeah, I played his urologist. Yeah.
That's right. Yes,
yeah.
I saw that. I was
had
like,
created this kind of device for checking his prostate. Ted Danson, for checking his prostate. He had to be in these stirrups as though he was in the gynecologist. And then we started dating. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
Yeah. But I had to give him this exam. Yeah. He was actually so like, you're actually going to do it, right? And it was this device that was like stirrups. And I remember his character and he were so uncomfortable.
It's perfect.
As
they should have been for that. Dan in real life.
Oh yeah, that was a beautiful experience.
I like that movie.
It was lovely. So that was Steve Carell early on, and Peter Hedges, who's Lucas's amazing dad, and created the movie. Yeah, all these great New York actors: Amy Ryan, Norbert.
Yes, Amy Ryan.
She's excellent.
Yeah, I interviewed her, but back when I was just doing print, a long time ago for the New York Times. Yeah. Okay, so more recently, let's go back to one other one, Seinfeld.
Yeah, I did.
So tell me about Seinfeld.
I don't think that was I remember, that was a stage there's a stage in your career when I just wanted to hit it right, hit the jokes, like that thing I said to you about Excellent Sheep. That would be a stage where I was still probably a sheep, because it's a very prescribed kind of comedy, and I think I was totally just trying to please Larry, whatever. Yeah.
So you don't look back at it thinking like, oh, that was the greatest.
No,
not at all.
no.
So you were still sheeping until what point? Where's the turning point?
I think when I did Friends, which was just slightly after that, and I felt like the kind of humor that character required was something I came up with on my own, just out of necessity. It was a kind of dryness that none of the other characters had. I thought that I probably had things to offer that weren't, as sort of the advertised qualities that actresses doing sitcoms had.
Yeah.
There's a period when you don't know if you should be like somebody who already exists, or you should totally trust your own instinct. And that was around a time I started to trust my instinct. And then I got to leave LA shortly thereafter.
So you started doing theater at that point, a lot of theater.
Yeah.
And that's when you could really stretch that.
Yeah. That was a beautiful time, and I kept thinking I should go back to TV, but this theater world kind of took me under its wing.
And you love it?
I love it. Now I'm on this path of doing TV again for the next year, so it's funny in that way.
Back up a second. I do want to make sure we mention the 24-hour plays.
I would love to mention
because
that.
This is such an interesting concept to me.
Yeah.
So the 24 hours plays, correct me if I get it wrong, and then I'll let you talk about it a little bit more. So whoever's working on it comes together, and they have 24 hours to write, rehearse, and put on these plays.
Yes.
So is this your first time doing it, or have you done it before?
I did it once before, but I couldn't make so it starts on a Sunday night, and you come and you sing a little bit of a song, and you bring some props or you bring one thing from your house that you think would be a great prop, and one thing that you think would be a great costume, and you kind of just present yourself through these exercises, and then you go home, and the writers stay up all night, and they write. There's a little cast is selected, and they write these plays. The first time I did it, I wasn't able to do that early exercise evening with them, so they just wrote something for me based on knowing me, and I played Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I didn't sing that much, which was wow. But I did go up on all my lines, and was because you have to learn all this stuff in 24 hours. And even though I went up on it, I had a moment of just losing it all. And I improvised, and I think the reason I was asked back is because for whatever reason, God offered me a few ad libs.
So you had you did really well, like maybe even better than the writing.
Really made them laugh for whatever reason, So I was asked back. But I'm doing it because I love musicals. I only did one musical in my career. I did Fiddler on the Roof, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't think I cracked it. And I don't sing in any kind of spectacular way. I mean, there's many people doing it on Monday night who sing beautifully. You should go for them. But I love singing enough that I'm thrilled.
Eric Bergen is in it.
Yes.
Right? He sings.
Yes. Montego Glover, amazing. She sings. Anthony Rapp is an amazing, so it's kind of great.
So do you get nervous ahead of time? Like, okay, I really have to figure this out and be right in the zone?
The singing will make me nervous. I'll go over it and over it. But I think those kinds of things right now that I feel vulnerable about are the best things to do.
Of course, okay. So you still look for that.
I love that. There's something about singing that you feel tremendous shame if you don't do it right. And then you have to get past that and sort of embrace the ability to screw up and keep going. And I did that through that musical, but I still am burdened by it. So I'm kind of working something out.
Okay, good.
And they're happy to have me, so I don't care.
That's great. Yeah. So, Red Oaks.
Oh my God, I love doing that.
I love that show.
Yeah. That was a good
I like these little quirky shows too. I feel like Red Oaks, special is kind of similar. It's really an original.
Yeah, total original.
And the characters are very clear, but they're like different than what you see every day.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a totally different time period. But that was a cute show too. I really liked it. It was too short-lived.
Very short-lived, but that was.
But you could tape that here because in New York, right?
Yeah, we did that here. But the thing about Red Oaks was I belonged to not a country club, a swim club in rural Connecticut called Suburban Swim Club. And my mom was divorced at that time. And I do remember this whole scene in the 80s and the guys that played tennis and went out with divorced women. And
That's so funny.
My mom had a nice boyfriend, actually, but yeah, and it all came flooding back. Yeah.
So I'm going to skip around again because you said about you were still like looking for the sheep, or you were still a sheep.
Yeah.
So why, was there a moment, was there something that happened that made you decide, I'm going to take this in a different direction?
Oh, well, I did. Yeah.
Like personally, did anything happen to make that, or professionally?
I think I had some professional experiences where I really had to fight for something that I believed in that changes the way you work. And, you can say intellectually, like, I'm going to get over that. But until you have racked up enough experiences where you were empowered and you passed through something, it's hard to really make change just by saying, I'm not going to be a sheep, right?
Yeah.
So I had some experiences. I had an experience on A View from the Bridge where I was very taken with Liev Schreiber and what he was doing, and I kept sort of falling back and not knowing how to, he's a very strong personality, and we had a really big fight where I had practiced what I wanted to say, because he works in a very volatile way, and I just felt like I couldn't articulate I couldn't articulate a characterization until I broke through and told him that it was like unacceptable for him to direct me while we were acting. And he was so responsive. I that was profound for me, both because I was driven to a place where I actually had to have a huge fight, and also that in a very transcendent way, that we had a huge fight and we figured out how to do this play together. And he was excellent to act with. And I think that a lot of people could have that kind of fight and forever hold this hostility, and which I could have easily done. But the fact that we tried to work it out after that was very cathartic, and it created some pattern in my acting that was that was more fierce, for lack of a better description. Because to fight for what you believe something is it's something creatively is, in a room full of people with a play that is a great play, is super challenging. It's really scary.
Yeah, especially for somebody who's feeling all the emotions, so aware of her own emotions.
And then Arthur Miller writes plays in which women are desperate to fight for something that they believe in, but really have tremendous obstacles. And so perhaps I was intuiting part of what she went through, but that was really transformational. And then you think, God, can I ever create something as strong without having a fight?
That's so interesting.
Right. So you think, is that the way I have to work all the time? But then right after that, I did this play Harvey, which is a comedy, and it was with Jim Parsons playing the my brother, and a lot of my stuff was with him. He's actually the wonderful producer of Special. He's an amazing person. And that was just the loveliest experience. And so no, you don't have to fight for what you can have, all sorts of impulses, and you can be totally nurtured. Like in Special, there was no fighting.
But still, so it's so interesting though that it took that turmoil to really shift things for you internally. But it wasn't that it was just those conditions that needed to repeat themselves, but it still was the fact that there were those conditions that actually triggered the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting. And I do then say to myself frequently, well, I went through that. And I worked with Arthur Miller before he passed away. The last play he did in New York was called After the Fall, and we did that. He was in the room and all. And sometimes I do feel that I'm in circumstances with people where I'm trying to prove myself, or I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. And I do have to say, working with great people and collaborating with great people does give you a sense of armor after a while. If you can remind yourself, you sort of think, I'm standing here with this person who's wrapping me into, twisting me into a knot, and he isn't half the writer or the mind that Arthur Miller is. So just look at it clearly.
Perspective.
Yeah.
So like, who are some of the people that you feel like really good people that you've worked with that have helped you maybe build that armor?
Oh, to build that. Well, I think that doing Fiddler on the Roof was amazing. I think in that play I was working with this actor Danny Bernstein, who's a great he's a great actor, and he was a really good example of how to fight for yourself in a very focused way. Laurie Metcalf, a great example of how to fight for what you want with the work, not with behaviors, just by doing your work and really coming in with integrity. Like I think that what happens is people are in power struggles because there are big power struggles within the creative process, but if you come in prepared and the whole journey you're on is to create something with integrity, and it's not there's nothing fly by night about it. There's something very thought out about the way you're working. I do find people usually respond to that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so you learn a whole language for just speaking from that place.
Right, because you're really involved in people. You're in a people business. Like, you are constantly really coming into full interaction, close interaction with people, and you never really know who you're going to get or what it's going to be like. So it's really, I imagine it's kind of intense, or
it is intense. And when you know something's maybe not right and you want to keep fighting for something that you really believe in, you have to learn the language for not just being neurotic, not saying, oh, it didn't feel good, because it really doesn't matter how you feel as an actor. Truly you feeling insecure, or you feeling like it wasn't your best take, or it wasn't a great night, isn't always valuable or valid. You have so many anxieties that can cloud your perception of whether or not it was a good show or a good take. But to be able to strongly identify, what you think should be played. I've sort of lost the track of what I was saying, but I was basically trying to express that it's not about your feelings, but it's about you knowing what it means when the show comes together or when the scene comes together, and being able to articulate it in a way that says to the director, like, I don't know, I don't know. I need to know if you're experiencing this from my performance, not just, am I good?
Right. So Eric Bogosian.
He's my good friend. Yeah.
Oh, is he? So he was on the podcast.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And he did tell me about how Liev can be really, I don't remember his words. I feel like I don't want to say because I would use the wrong words. But he was talking about exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. He didn't mention you, but I suppose he had been, and they're friends. But he said that he's very, whatever the words were, you'll have to listen back and see. But I think not in an easy way.
Yeah, not an easy.
So that's tough, but you have to really learn how to work with different personalities.
Well, I think people act from different places in their psyche. Some people act from a very dark place. Some people act from a place of hope, Yes. My friend Sarah Rule, who's a great, great playwright, says it all has to come from a place of wonder. Who can criticize that? I wonder if...
So what do you see for yourself now, not career-wise, but like now that the kids are kind of leaving the nest?
Yeah.
So what about the next chapter? Are you thinking much about it?
I don't think about it because I don't know what will happen. Part of me wants to be filled with new work, a new kind of work. I'm really interested in... this sounds so dorky, but doing communities, plays with communities.
Really? So you want to get into community theater, you mean?
No, more like working with communities that are in distress and creating plays within those communities. So
there's that
like drama
need
therapy stuff. Yeah, which I think is super interesting. And the only way I can actually do that is if I make a lot of cash. So I have to keep... but it's a different... it goes from wanting your kids to be supported to that. I just find that interesting. I'm not really good when I'm sort of, I don't want to be alone reading a book.
Right. So you're not into like the downtime of just doing nothing and vegging, really?
No, because I always think at that moment when I'm just there reading my book or doing something, I also want to learn some languages. I love languages, but I always think, well, if you just mentally picture all these people in New York, who do you know, I think, oh, there's like someone performing surgery right now. There's someone fighting a fire right now. There's someone making this elaborate meal at a restaurant, and I'm on the couch reading this book.
Interesting. I get it.
Get off your ass. I just
So what do you like to do when you're not working? Because you have those, it must be those weird hours too, where like sometimes you're working days and days and days and others not at all.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I keep pretty busy. So I do run this organization that goes to refugee camps. So I'm loving that because I just find that super interesting. When I'm not working, I got a dog that I'm taking care of now that I love. I don't, and that actually is kind of serene because I don't bring my phone. I just take him for walks and try to just be around. I don't know. I'm certain that I'm in some sort of lost chapter, and it'll define itself.
You are in a lost chapter?
Probably because, these other chapters of your life define themselves. I mean, this lost chapter may last for the final 30 years.
Do you think?
I don't know. But I definitely feel this is probably the antidote to being lost. I do feel that there are people that I'm involved with that will ask things of me that I would love to be able to produce, either work or relationships. I definitely don't feel in a void. I just feel like I can't figure out which door to open, but I'm definitely not in a void.
Right, so there are a lot of doors.
That's what it is.
Plenty, and that's a good thing.
Plenty of doors.
There's an abundance.
Oh, I don't feel like I don't have options.
Plus, I feel like you could enter a bunch of different doors.
At once.
Right? Right. Does it have to be defined by one thing?
Yeah. It's just getting over the fact that I don't take care of people anymore in the same way.
Right.
I love
Maybe you'll go back to nannying.
No, I did say to my kids, I would love to open a preschool. And they're like, I don't know, Mom. I think people would find it odd. You're kind of like known in the community.
I think it would be kind of cool, actually.
It would be so insane. Yeah.
You just want to be around the kids.
I really love small children. Yeah. And I'm always like thinking, it's just crazy. And now my children and my husband, sometimes I'll speak to them as though they're small children and they're appalled. I'll be like, how is that? Is that good? They're like, my husband's like, I'm fucking 57 years old. Just like, but
you
that's
can't help
just,
it.
I guess it's really hard not to feel screwed up.
Yeah, well, we're human, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thanks.
So right now, you can go to youtube.com/reallyfamous to see Jessica's extra bonus Q&A video. Shout out to my friend, Christina Jasper. She is my kid's ex-babysitter and my really amazing friend who just wrote a novel and should really, really take it to the next step and get published. For sure, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Really Famous. You'll also find dozens of little videos that I recorded with my really famous, really fascinating guests. I'm Cara Mayer Robinson. Thanks for hanging out. Hi, it's Kara. I'm here with Jessica Hecht. We just had a spectacular conversation.
Yeah, please. She's wonderful to talk to if you have any problems or really just want to share your most intimate details. Totally give her a call. What's your number?
It's 1-800-THERAPY now. That'd be good, actually. I should take that out.
You should.
I don't feel like we had a therapy session, though.
No, just a nice, actually kind of girl-friendly.
Yeah. This was fun. So tune in. Make sure you check it out. And anything else you want to say?
Have a beautiful day.